it gives me great pleasure to welcome you here to this workshop. It has been an interesting year, and I say this because while I'm aware that the University of the West Indies has Centers for Gender Studies, I will admit that I have never given gender issues a lot of thought. And why? I think it has to do with the fact that I grew up in a household of 6 children, 4 girls and 2 boys. And there were no tasks that were considered the domain of the girls or tasks that were considered the domain of the boys. But I'm aware of the university's concern with male marginalization. But I've always felt that if we offer subjects that are of interest to males, that the concern will be a thing of the past. But fortunately for me, I was invited to a 1-week gender sensitization training workshop, which was held from June 28th to May 2nd earlier this year. It was organized by the Policy and Planning Division in collaboration with the Ministry of Health and Social Services, and was conducted by Mrs. Nana Oye Hesse-Bain, who is a social economist with core competencies in social development and gender. The aim of this workshop was to improve participants' understanding of gender-based issues, to provide tools for gender mainstreaming, as well as offering a hands-on approach for participants to apply the tools learned. And I would say that the workshop was successful because I ended up being a bit more knowledgeable about gender issues than when I started. It has made me aware of issues that I need to take into consideration when planning activities. And of course, I even shared with Dr. Burns that I understood that gender is culturally and socially constructed, while one sex is a result of biology. Now, projects have cycles and deadlines, and Dr. Burns' concern that Montserrat benefit from this workshop before the project came to an end saw me offering the open campus as an option for implementing the training. So now it's my pleasure to call on Dr. Burns to give us the background to this project and to tell us about the partners who are involved. Dr. Burns?
I'm going to tell you a little more of why the project came into being, right? Research, you heard that CDB is concerned because the project, Ms. Castle went on, is sponsored by CDB. And CDB is one of our main funding partners in the Caribbean. And one of the things they want to know when you send in a project is how many males you're catering for, how many females. They want to make sure that neither of the sexes is marginalized. Let me use your word, okay? And we know that the critical early years is very important. So partnering with KFL, we wanted to make sure that we tapped into tomorrow's generation and we start now. Because the research out there indicates, as we know, there's rapid growth and change that occurs during the first 8 years of life. It has been documented too that humans are not born with prejudices. However, by the age of 5 years old, young children begin to internalize and exhibit gender stereotypical beliefs, perceptions of behavior, roles, and expectations. Sometimes what we teach them overtly and covertly. We also know that during the ages of 3 to 8 years old, traits such as industriousness, determination, stubbornness, openness, inquisitiveness, and curiosity are in the process of being refined. Those of us who work with little children, we know how they're inquisitive, and they're not fully developed as yet. They're still refining these skills. Thus, the importance of creating enabling environments and activities to facilitate the development of these skills. I recently came across an article that listed 5 traits of wealthy individuals, and I want to be wealthy, so that's why I was reading it. And according to Nobel Prize-winning economist James Heckman, wealthy persons invested heavily, not in early childhood education, but quality early childhood education. So they weren't sending their children to places where somebody was just looking at them, but making sure that the care they were getting was appropriate to their needs. The OECS Education Sector Strategy 2012-2021, which is also guiding education in Montserrat, has as one of its imperatives, imperative number 5, expecting us in the region to increase and expand access to quality early childhood development services. In Montserrat, the access part we have taken care of very well, because as you know, we have 3 government-operated daycares and 3 nursery schools, in addition to the private centers, in addition to all the providers that are around. So access is taken care of. Then between the 5 to 8, we have our primary schools. So the children are in primary schools. Truancy is not a problem in Montserrat. If we walk down the street and we see a child who should be in school and they're out of school, what do we do? We find out what's the problem. So our children access, they're taken care of. The issue that we have, however, is the quality. What do we mean by quality? Quality refers to how well we adjust our learning environments and our teaching to the needs of these young children. How well we adjust it to their abilities, to their capabilities of the developing child. I want us to remember that these are not miniature adults. They are still growing, they are still developing. So how developmentally appropriate are our current practices in our daycares, our nursery schools, our kindergartens, our grade 1 and grade 2 classrooms? Do we expect these children to just constantly sit for extended periods of time, just remember things, or we have them actively engaged? This workshop is about creating gender-responsive classrooms and learning environments, especially for our developing children. But, as you heard, it will benefit all of us. Ms. Castle is changed. Then you may ask, why here in Montserrat? Well, I'm out there getting other people to do it, and my people are not doing it. It's like you bake a cake, and you gave everybody else out there the cake, and your family members not eating it. Wouldn't it look funny? So I had to make sure before the project cycle is done, I got to Montserrat and got the workshop in Montserrat. So the others wouldn't say, why are you making us do it, and Montserrat isn't. However, unlike some in our neighboring islands even today, I grew up with females in politics, people like Rose Kelsick, Mary Rose Chewitt, Anidaya Howe, and Adelina Chewitt, just to name a few. I grew up with females in law enforcement. My neighbor, Yvonne Ryan, was a police officer when I was a little girl, and we know of Inspector Margaret Lee. I grew up with women in construction. You remember, how many of you remember Anne, the lady who used to paint? Right. And after Hurricane Hugo in 1989, Mrs. Mary Margaret Anidaya Howe started a group, Women in Construction, of which my mother was a member and I was an honorary member. So we went around after Hugo and we were tiling people's houses, and they went on the roof. I didn't go on the roof. I was a little young, right? I also knew that in Montserrat we had males who were master cooks and bakers. You remember Mr. Morgan, the famous goat water man from St. John's? Simon Mead? And I also grew up knowing men as nurses right here in Montserrat and men as hairdressers right here in Montserrat. So we don't have any gender issues here. However, in 2015 when I went to UWI, I was introduced to one of my classmates. On the first day of class, our lecturer introduced him as the son of Superintendent Stephen. We spent 2 years working and studying together rather closely because we were in a group together. However, he got stuck in Dominica with Hurricane Maria the other day. A few days later, on his return to Barbados, there was a picture of my friend in the newspaper and with Superintendent Stephen, his parent. I'm like, his father is a police officer? I don't know. And I said, oh my, Superintendent Stephen is happy to see her son back safely in Barbados. So I assumed, although I'm aware of all these things, and currently doing training in the region, for no reason I asked which parent. I just assumed. And I told you before, I grew up with female police officers. So if my how many years of indoctrination, nobody forcefully told me that male is supposed to do this job, but because of what you see, we tend to think about it. So that's one of the reasons why we're here in Montserrat, to make sure the future of Montserrat don't have this narrow thinking like I had. So the aim of this workshop is to provide us with skills to empower all of us who interact with tomorrow's leaders in such a way that they not be limited by my narrow perspectives and our narrow perspectives. Thus, they will be able to dream, to become, to do, rather than being restricted simply because they are born either male or female. So, on behalf of Dr. Ogunkola, Director of the School of Education, Cave Campus, Ms. Marlene Johnson, the Operations Officer, Gender and Development, and Dr. Martin Baptiste, the Education Specialist at the Caribbean Development Bank, I wish to thank Ms. Castle for helping us out, Dr. Morris, the developer of the module who we'll be using today and facilitating the workshop as well, and UNICEF, our development partner, who facilitated the participation of Mr. Stanford Kelly, who will be co-facilitating this workshop, but unfortunately isn't here tonight, for making this workshop possible. Thanks to each and every one of you for being here. You could have signed up, saw the inclement weather all day today, and changed your mind. Thank you very much for coming. And I have some special commendations, and I owe some people some things, but don't rush to me later, we'll sort that out. For the first 3 people who registered, Shadi Ama, Beverly Allen, and the third person isn't here. Maybe it's the weather. Should I call her name still? Arlette Brown. And my other special person who I want to big up, Jose White, who brought the largest posse around here. Let me see all of Jose's people, although she's not here. Right, so I have to sort out Jose. And my other special friend, who unfortunately couldn't be here, but he made sure he had at least one representative, Mr. Nielsen Jubri. Let me see Nielsen's person. Okay, thank you. I promise you, after this workshop, there will be no achievement tests. If you're like me, and most of your students, you don't want an achievement test, right? However, we anticipate that the knowledge you gain here tonight, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night will make its way into your life, into your practice, into your homes, into your communities, and the classrooms for the benefit of our children, our future leaders, and most of all, our beloved paradise, Montserrat. Thank you.
It's important for us to actually understand the background, all the details of what went into the planning of this. I think it's important that we have that information, and I'm grateful for her presence. Now, it is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Morris to Montserrat and to this workshop. By way of introduction, Dr. Morris holds a PhD in education. She's an educational consultant and lecturer in early education at the Micro University College. She has done extensive research in gender and education and has been selected on many occasions to make presentations on the topic. She has served as guest lecturer, consultant, and facilitator at the University of the West Indies Cave Hill campus and with the Caribbean Development Bank. In 2016, Dr. Morris, she worked with Dr. Burns to design and develop a curriculum module in gender and early education, which will be incorporated in the associate's, bachelor's, and master's degree programs in early childhood at the University of the West Indies Cave Hill. To introduce in-service early childhood practitioners to the curriculum module, she facilitated training workshops with participants from across the region. These workshops were funded by CDB and UNICEF.
I know the residents that I have already interacted with would have been representing all of you, and they have done very well so far. I look forward to sharing with you this evening, and I hope that you will come with an open mind, come with your questions, your comments, your concerns, and just participate and have a good time.
I'd like to once again thank Dr. Burns for her continuing interest in Montserrat in general and early childhood, the early childhood sector in Montserrat in particular. We thank her for stretching the project resources to include Montserrat. And we ask you to convey our sincere thanks to the partners providing the funding that makes this possible. We thank you too for assisting with creating the kind of space that the workshop needs. And we thank you too for organizing transportation for our participants. Now, I'm always grateful to Radio Montserrat, and I don't know if any of you had a chance to listen to the interview this morning on Basil's breakfast show. So they're teaching. I noticed some nods though of affirmation. Anyway, I'd like to thank Basil. I'd like to thank the team at Radio Montserrat. Mr. Herman Sargent is ever so accommodating. He provides me with resources that we don't have for amplification and that sort of thing. And I'm really grateful for that and the opportunity that they provide for getting information out to the wider community.